Okay guys, today we're gonna learn how to add some GPX data. So normally we'd go up and just hit add data, but today we're gonna search for it because we need to use a special tool to do this. So we're gonna go to GPX to feature. Now a feature is essentially a picture of our data. The GPX file is nothing but a pile of data, so we need to have a picture of it, so to speak, to be able to do something with it. Now, depending on what kind of file you could have a whole bunch of different features from one file. But we're going to go, there are my waypoints, we'll click those, and it's also going to ask me for an output file. So we've given it the input file, the thing it's taking the information from. Now we need to tell it what it's giving the information to, and we're just going to throw it in our default stuff today, and we're just going to change the name a little so we can better understand what we're looking at. But as I said, we're just going to throw it in the default, doesn't need to look pretty, and it'll just be on our hard drive. Now as GIS does its thing, today we're using ArcGIS 10.2 for those of you guys who are curious. Now in a second, it's going to take a little bit, but out of nowhere, pretty little dots are going to pop onto our screen, and those are our waypoints. So we're going to know we've succeeded when that happens. Now over here on our left we have this layers thing, and a list by source, list by drawing order, all that stuff. That allows us to figure out what's plotting where, and we can throw more data in if we desired. For example, why don't we add a base map, just so we can see what this would look like on the Earth. Now today we're going to use just the plain imagery base map, not the imagery base map with pictures, not the imagery base map with words, or outlines of any states or anything. We're just going to use plain old satellite imagery. And that'll show us exactly where those dots plot on a base map. Now it'll take a second, but then we'll even see it show up on our left in the table of contents underneath the same layer. And then when it does that, we'll tell this no over here. Now when it does that, it's kind of hard to see. We can't really see those dots, so let's make those bigger. Let's start by giving it a more obvious color. How about red? Now, it's still going to be pretty small. How about we make it a 10 point, and then that'll make it much bigger. Now we have these big, bright red circles to deal with. Now, of course, that isn't where the game ends, so now why don't we move it a little? And now when we move it, it's going to look really funny for a second, because now we can't really see what we're looking at. So how about we right-click it, and we'll go zoom to layer. When we do that, it will zoom to whatever feature we're trying to zoom to, whether that was the United States, whether that was the picture of your hometown, whether that was the entire town of entire area of Australia. It would allow us to zoom in what we need. Now I've just switched the viewpoint, sort of like you would do on Word, but that is a huge map. That takes up a lot of our area, right? And we want to send this to other people. We want other people to know what we're looking at. So in a second, as soon as ArcGIS starts responding again, we'll see a blue square. But why don't we zoom to layer first so we can actually see our waypoints fully. Again, this is just going to zoom to whatever feature we want it to, and it will zoom in nice and pretty, showing them all of them. If this was the United States, it would be all of the states. And since this is just a bunch of dots, it will show us all the dots. Now, why don't we make this much smaller as soon as ArcGIS responds again, by just shortening our little blue square. Then we'll come over here and make it smaller. And now that's a much better view. We'll zoom again because we still can't see all those red dots. But no matter how big our viewpoint is, we're still going to be able to zoom as much as we want. We could even zoom in on one particular little red dot if we wanted to. But now we're going to have a little bit of an issue, because as soon as it reloads, we're going to see that in the bottom right, it's going to cover our viewpoint with a little tiny citation of itself right there. And we don't like that, do we? So how about we move this up to our top left corner so we have more room on our page. And then we're going to move our waypoints over towards the left so that we have a better view of what we're seeing. Now, depending on what we want to do, if we wanted to see just the waypoints, like we're going to do here, we can favor the waypoints. Or we could make this a little easier on ourselves if we want to see this entire image better, including what's on our right, all these buildings. We could do that by making the image itself a little bigger so that Esri's citation is more or less in an area that is unimportant, at least for this particular map. Now sadly we can't remove that citation completely, but we can at least make it do less damage. Now all I'm doing is moving our images all the way to the left so that all the waypoints are still on our image, but hopefully none of them will be covered by the citation anymore, making it much easier to see. Now, if we send this to people, people are going to wonder what they're looking at, so we could add a title, but we're just going to add a legend today. Now, we don't need anyone to know what the base map is, because everyone will hopefully recognize our base map, so we don't need that in a legend. However, we will need the waypoints in the legend. No one is going to instinctively know what those red dots are. They could be anything. So, we're going to add a border today, but no background. We'll go for a 1 point. And then, of course, we're going to let it load, but it's going to be a little bit small. So let's put it up in the right-hand corner. But look at how small that is. Now, when we go in here, we can go over here and make it bigger by numbers. We could just change whatever format we wanted. We could change the title of it to something special, or just change the size of the title. But I find it easier, instead of using numbers, to do it the easy way and just click and drag. And now look at how big and pretty that looks. Let's add a scale bar, because everyone needs to know how big our map is, right? And then we'll move that right underneath the map. But of course, now we still need a north arrow, so let's insert a north arrow. You have a couple of choices here, but this is my personal favorite. Now let's put it in the bottom right. Now normally I would leave it here, but look at how hard that is to see. So let's put it over in the bright green area on our left, where it will be much more visible. Now you don't actually need these per se, depending on what your use is. But if you were in a cartography class, they'd always tell you need all of these on a map, because that makes a map really hard to use if you don't have them. We could add just about anything we want, and we could add more data. We're just going to add a data frame. Now a data frame is another section of map, so to speak. So it's just like the layer we have above there. That's just another data frame. Now, we could do some really interesting things with this. We could do an extent indicator. That's where we put on another map the extent of the map we just made. So normally that would be for things like outlining on a picture of Australia or the United States, where we might be on that picture of Australia or the United States. So if we're looking at Colorado, we could outline Colorado. If we're looking at Queensland, we could do that as well. But since we're just looking at a small section, we don't need to do that today. But now we're going to, of course, need to turn this into a pretty little PDF picture. So we're just going to go up over towards Edit. And when we look at it, we can see what we can do. But we want File. We're going to go to File, Export. And once we go to File and Export, as soon as we get past it, here we go. We're going to go to File, Export. And once it goes to export, we can see that we can do it a bunch of things, including PDFs, but a whole bunch of image files. Thank you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope it's helpful.